What house in your natal chart is in the sign of Scorpio? I ask because in this video, we are going to be diving into this Scorpio new moon happening November 19th or 20th, depending on your time zone. And we not only see the sun and moon conjunct in Scorpio, but we also see that Mercury Retrograde is happening also in Scorpio at the time of this new moon. And Venus, the planet of love and relationships, will also be in Scorpio. So somewhere in your natal chart, you have these major planets transiting in a certain area, indicating that a lot of these overarching Scorpio themes and these new moon themes of new beginnings and this opportunity to initiate something new in the Scorpio realms of emotional depths, emotional healing, deeper understandings on an intuitive level will all be showing up in a specific area. And I'm super excited to dive into that with you. But before we do, I want to thank the brand that keeps the lights on here at Alina Align, and that is the R-Align 2026 astrology planners. Most of you already know what it is, so I'm not even going to dive into it, but I will say that we literally sold out of all the spiral planners. Do you see any on this shelf? Yeah, you don't, because they're all booked. They have all been pre-ordered. No, but they're all sold out, and Black Friday sales have begun early. That deal is going to end a little bit earlier. We're starting earlier, but also ending earlier. Really quick, for anybody who doesn't already know, the R-Align Astrology Planner has the top transits of 2026 in the same place where you plan your year, and it has dedicated full moon and new moon journaling areas for every single month, so you can plan in alignment with lunar cycles. What to do? It's your girl Alina back for another video, and in this one we will be diving into the new moon that is happening in the fixed water sign of Scorpio. Now, the zodiac signs or the sign placements that will be experiencing this new moon the strongest, the most palpably, in a most palpable way, will be my fixed signs of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, okay? I would also say that some other signs that will be feeling this a little bit more strongly will also be my Gemini and Virgos, just because Mercury rules over Gemini and Virgo. It's retrograde, and it's in a sign-based conjunction with this new moon. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into it. New moons in general signify the beginning of a new lunar cycle, but they're also this sort of signification in the night sky from an astrological perspective that just like the moon isn't visible anymore in the night sky, neither can be our sort of like energy. We can call our energy back to ourselves around this time, and it's just as productive to be in rest and reflection mode, not necessarily being visible to everyone, just as productive as it is to be out and about and be in action. And an important distinction that I want to point out is that it can be so important to reflect on the previous lunar cycle, maybe intention set for the cycle ahead, but not necessarily put too much pressure on yourself to be in action and actually like initiate those things. Initiation comes after the new moon. In general, it's usually encouraged after that. And just as you see that in the night sky, the light builds on the surface of the new moon all the way to its light peak at the full moon, so too can the momentum around the intentions that you set around this time also build. And that's why in the R-Align astrology planners, I added dedicated new moon journaling sections for every single month that have areas for you to not only intention set, but there's also a prompt to help you sort of like visualize what it is you want to call in, and again, reflect on what did and didn't work in the previous lunar cycle. Now, for a bit more context, considering that this new moon is in the sign of Scorpio, and Scorpio is traditionally ruled by the planet Mars, we want to kind of like look to the state of Mars currently around the time of this new moon to get a better understanding of the general overarching themes or vibes that this new moon will be expressing through. And we see that at the time of this new moon, Mars will be in the sign of Sagittarius, which is the sign of conviction, curiosity, deep research, and learning. And so it'll be through that lens that this Scorpio new moon will be directing these sort of new beginnings through it. And it'll be this sort of symbolic exhale emotionally for many of us. Scorpio is, it's this water sign, it's a fixed sign, which really, it indicates these overarching themes of commitment to anything that we decide to begin right now, but also an emotional groundedness to it as well. Scorpio is such a great representation of the necessary vulnerability that comes with intimacy. It's this sign that rules over those more intimate relationships beyond the initial, surface level, hey, how you doing? We're meeting each other, but really diving into and opening up about our wounds, our shadows, reflecting on those things. And it is currently Scorpio season. So this is a beautiful time for that deeper level of reflection within us, or having those deeper conversations, whether it be in therapy or with friends. And you actually might notice around the time of this lunation, those things coming up more organically around this time. And by the way, before we continue, I want to mention that if you want an outline of this video emailed directly to you, usually like a day before any given full moon or new moon, then you should sign up for the Align newsletter. It's a written form of this video, and it includes a link of this video. So like if you forget, you get a reminder by email. So check it out. It's linked in the description. Now moving on to top transits that are happening around the time of this new moon, we see that about 10 days before the new moon, Mercury entered retrograde. It went retrograde, and it started its retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius, but at the time of this new moon, it will have retrograded back into the sign of Scorpio, and it will be joined by Venus, the sun, and moon, all in the sign of Scorpio. Now, I actually did a video doing a deeper dive into what exactly is a Mercury retrograde. What does that mean for you? What does it mean that it's in the sign of Sagittarius? It's starting out there. And I actually started a podcast. Like I literally started a whole thing, and it's called Aligned Weekly. And I'm going to go ahead and link it. It'll be linked somewhere here. But just so you know, if you want an even deeper dive into it and you want some, just a fun, chatty sort of podcast that covers pop culture news, along with some US or world news and the top transits happening weekly, then you should check out Aligned Weekly. And so it's this weekly podcast and video that comes out every Monday where you get, little snippets of what's going on in the world, but you also find out what the top transits that are happening for the week ahead. So you stay informed and aligned every week. And it's just chit chatty. Like I literally made it for the type of person that needs to do a commute that enjoys morning radio type stuff. It's like a variety sort of morning show type of thing that molds like top transits and pop culture and world news. So anyway, I'm excited about it. You should totally check it out. I'm going to wait. Add it to your watch list. I'll wait. Yeah. Okay, anyway, moving on. So the top transit that I wanted to talk about first is Mercury retrograde. And at the time of this new moon, it'll be in the sign of Scorpio. And so generally speaking, Mercury retrogrades, in order to understand them, we need to back up a little bit and understand the nature of Mercury. Mercury rules over the internet, short distance travel, some long distance travel. It rules over information exchange, all things that travel via air. So think about words, information, conversation, but also music. Think of the internet, think of electricity. And with that context, when Mercury goes retrograde, and when any planet goes retrograde, in astrology, it's seen as this time where just as a planet is from our vantage point here on Earth, just as a planet appears to be slowing down and circling back, in astrology, it's seen as this signification of a time where we might have experiences that encourage us to slow down and circle back to something as well. And what that is that we are circling back to is usually what the planet rules over. So Mercury going retrograde is encouraging us to slow down and circle back to those mercurial themes of slowing down, circling back to our emails, our conversations. Did we maybe misspell something? Is there maybe miscommunication somewhere? Let's slow down and circle back to those things. It's asking us to slow down and circle back to maybe travel plans and things like that. As of the time of me recording this, the government shutdown has ended here in the US, but just a few days ago, there were huge conversations around travel delays and travel issues, and that because of the government shutdown, there could be up to 10% of flights being completely canceled. And that is the most Mercury retrograde type of conversation that you see being played out on the world stage. And I'm really happy to see that a lot of that is being resolved. There's a lot more nuance and in context to that. But again, I'm diving into more of these real world things in the Aligned Weekly podcast. So check it out. So that's one layer. And then the other layer of this is what sign is the retrograde planet in and what context is that giving? So Mercury is retrograde at the time of this new moon in the sign of Scorpio. With it being in the sign of Scorpio, it's basically, long story short, it's indicating that we as a collective can have this time where we're invited to slow down and really revisit older conversations and information as it pertains to our relationships, our more intimate relationships, our more long-term relationships. Think of really, Mercury retrograde in Scorpio is like, I don't know, if not Libra, it's just the epitome of like an ex coming back, or maybe you might be that ex. Nobody talks about that. Everybody's, oh, your ex might come back. And it's like, for one, it might not necessarily be a romantic ex. It could be friends or people from your past, like in any capacity. It could be from work, them coming out of the woodwork. It could be you who finally just, I don't know, you just feel this inkling like, you know what, I want to message that person and just kind of circle back and talk to them. And because I feel like we didn't really wrap up things, and I kind of want to make sure they're good. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like the most dramatic emotional thing as well. The other sort of like nuance to it as well is that sometimes went through experiences, Mercury retrograde experiences that encourage us to slow down, whether they are hiccups or setbacks or slowdowns or things like that. Sometimes they spotlight for us, it actually allows us to connect the dots and things that makes us actually excited to have conversations and resolve things on a more emotional level, on a more interpersonal level, considering the Scorpio themes. So that is that. I also want to mention that on the day of the new moon on the 19th, we'll see that retrograde Mercury in Scorpio will be trining with Neptune, which is currently in Pisces. Now, this is definitely a transit of where truth meets compassion, like where you might notice some conversations that feel like they're more deeper rooted in heart to hearts. There can be this softness to any sort of edges when it comes to more Scorpio themed like emotional intensity, especially when it comes to our intuition and our imagination. And for some of us, we might have experiences that kind of invite us to pause and reflect on relationships from a different perspective that maybe involve a little bit more compassion or empathy, or that invite us to sort of question the idea that we had in our mind about certain people, where we kind of come back and for what's coming to mind is sometimes we have experiences with the person or with other people that make us realize that the other person or those people, they weren't as bad as we made up in our head, or you might have experiences where you're invited to circle back to certain dynamics and you're realizing more of these Neptune and Pisces themes of, oh my gosh, like actually there were a lot more lies or white lies or things that were not very truthful that I'm realizing now because I'm having to slow down and circle back to those things. So those are those type of themes. And looking at it in the grand context with this Scorpio new moon, there's definitely these experiences that for many of us might feel initially like a challenge or a setback, but for many of us could be helping to usher us into this new Scorpio lunar cycle for us, this new 28-day cycle or even 6-month cycle up until the Scorpio full moon that we'll have in 6 months. They might actually be ushering us into this journey of deeper rooted emotional healing if we are open to it. So those are the overarching themes that are happening for this new moon. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the time to do an all signs reading for this video, but I'm sending you all my love and my gift, my early Christmas gift request is that you check out Aligned Weekly, that my new video series that I'm planning to release every Monday that will include covering top transits, just like this one. Actually, the one that comes out next Monday will include a mini dive into the new moon, as well as I think Jupiter retrograde, because that's happening this week. Again, our Align astrology planners align your year with the top transits, turn astrological chaos into clarity and calm for the new year. And again, they're on sale for a limited time. We are starting Black Friday deals early and ending them early. We are a small woman-run business. We are not a part of those bigger, grander corporations. Everything will be shipped in the first week of December, it's looking like. And like I mentioned before, spiral planners are all sold out. We will not be doing restocks. We only print once a year. And that's basically it, y'all. So I will see you in the next one. I'm sending you my love. And I will end this with my favorite affirmation. And that is, be gentle with yourself. Because life is about the journey, not the destination. All right. Ooh, just in time. I have an alarm. I'll see y'all in the next one. I'll see you next Monday for Aligned Weekly episode 2. Let's get it. All right. Peace.